Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mark Evans, and today I wanted to talk about a lot of geopolitics that's going on, because that's part of the reason why I came to Saipan, and that's where I'm at here now, is in Saipan Island, which is in the middle of the Pacific. And I wanted to discuss the geopolitics of what's going on in the United States, because it had an effect, or it's one of the reasons why I came here. And I think it's important. It is important. It was important enough for me to sell everything I owned and move out here in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific. So I think you should understand why I made that decision and how it's related to what's happening in the United States now. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because the conditions which made me realize that I want to be here are still happening in the United States. The people who created the conditions that made me want to leave are still doing a lot of dumb things. And so I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about what's happening in the world, because there's lots of you out there that might be going through the same thoughts and having the same emotions about what's happening, and you might be reaching for a decision about what to do about all this, because I was thinking about it day and night. So the biggest issue is immigration. How is it going to affect the United States? And it's not about being racist towards any race. I married a couple of different people that is different than me, okay? I married a Korean and 2 Filipinas. I was engaged to 4 Thai girls. So it's not about racism. It's about how different ideas about how you run the country can change an entire country, and how it affects your day-to-day living. And when you have unrestricted immigration and you allow a bunch of bad guys into the country, this has been shown all throughout the world. In Europe, you see crime rates spike, because when you don't vet the people that are coming in the country and just load them on a plane and bring them over to the country, you're going to have a lot of bad guys in the mix. When you just let people run across the border and you're not checking to see who they are or their background, you're going to have a lot of bad guys in the mix. And these bad guys are going to affect your security of your country. And one of the ideas I wanted to talk about was that in China, I don't think you can even use Facebook. I don't think they can. Some of them can't even use YouTube. They're very restricted as far as their thinking, or what they're allowed to be able to, the ideas that they're allowed to be able to explore. If you're living in China, they're closed off from a lot of the ideas in the Western world. Okay, and the United States will restrict access from Chinese citizens or people in China to different sites. There's apps where the United States completely is trying to boycott certain apps because it allows China's intelligence to be able to gather information from the United States. When you allow all these bad guys into the United States from other countries, you're completely lifting off all the barriers of restrictions for the importation of ideas and things which could potentially damage the very infrastructure of the United States. What I'm talking about is that there's not too many places where you can import a huge mass number of Muslims without them actually trying to influence the laws and ideas of the United States. That's one example. I'm not saying I'm for or against Muslim religion. I'm just telling you that when you take a group of people who share a similar idea and they move to a country, they most of the time try to impose their ideas on that country and force the people to live as they do. That's going to have an effect. Okay, so back to my main point. You might be thinking, what are you going to do about it? I decided to move here for several reasons. One was geopolitics. Another one was because if there is another virus epidemic, I felt being on an island like here, isolated in the middle of the Pacific, is going to give me and what potential family I might have here more protection against any outside threats. than any place else in the world. In a sense, the ocean is my border wall. Okay, so this area is protected from any outside influence, be it viral or refugees or whatever, from any place else in the world. So in that sense, I have a greater sense of security here than I would any place else in the world, be it viral, be it immigration, be it whatever. The government has more control because we have a huge ocean out here that protects us from any outside negative influences. And so that's one of the reasons I came here. It provides greater safety and security and protection for any family that I may have in the future and myself. So if you're thinking about maybe you want to do the same thing that I did, there's a lot of things you got to consider. When I came here, one of the things that I didn't realize is that this place is closed off from the rest of the world right now. All the hotels, well, except for a couple of them, are closed. I work in hotels, so it's very difficult for me to get a job. My focus is going to be to try to get a job online, because the jobs that are here, there's hardly anything here available for jobs online here. So that's one of the things you're going to have to consider. How are you going to make money once you get here, if you decide to come to here or any other island? There's lots of islands to choose from. But if you leave the U.S., that's another thing you have to consider. Where are you going to go? Because if you leave the U.S., you have to pick a place that you're going to be able to legally live. That's another reason why I came here. Because I'm a U.S. citizen, I can legally live here in Saipan. And I could live in Guam as well. But Saipan is actually under the jurisdiction of the United Nations, so it doesn't necessarily have to follow the laws of the United States. Whereas Guam does, because it's an official U.S. territory of the United States. That means it's basically under the thumb of the United States. Everything that's happening in the United States, Guam has pretty much got to follow. Saipan doesn't have to follow that. However, there's another part of geopolitics that I want to discuss, which applies to the Pacific. There's a lot of people don't understand how China's policies are working right now, but their idea is they want to try to take over the United States without a war. And the people who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. The other people who don't know what I'm talking about are being like, what? What are you talking about? They have a very sneaky way of getting their influence into an area, whether it be this island or the other islands in the Pacific, or whether it be California. And they sneak their way into the influence, and then they'll try to control the government. And it's a very long topic, but my point is that even if you come here, the odds that you could fall under China rule is highly likely. This island has been conquered first by the Germans, then by the Spanish, then by the Japanese, and then by the United States. So it's been taken over numerous times in history. The odds that it could be that China could try to take it over is highly likely. So even though you come to an island like this, it doesn't mean you're completely immune from attack from outside influences. But is it better? Is the gamble better than what's happening in the United States? I think it is. At this point in time, I think it is. So that's something that you have to consider when you see what's going on in the United States. Is this area going to be safer? I believe it is. And I see a lot of Americans coming here, but most of the Americans that I see coming here usually have a connection with Asians in some way. I was married to one Korean and two Filipinos, and I was stationed in the Philippines for a few years and stationed in Korea for a little while. And like I said, I was engaged to 4 different Thai girls, so I have a deep connection with Asia. And a lot of Americans who come here, they have that same kind of connection. So if you don't have that connection to Asians, you might not find it that easy to assimilate in a place like this. But there's other places. I mean, you could immigrate to Australia or immigrate to the Cook Islands. It's not going to be easy, but that's a possibility. But what I see the United States falling into a state of decline, because not only do you have the people who's working inside our government who want to destroy it, you also have outside entities like China who would be really glad to see the U.S. fall into decline. And Russia wouldn't be all that opposed to the idea of the U.S. being into decline either. So I don't see any way out of it, because if you know about what happened during the election, if you don't know about what happened during the election, I recommend you watch the Epic Times Who is Stealing America at least a couple of times. Then you'll understand what's happening, what's really happening. And once you understand what's really happening, you got to ask yourself, what's gonna stop it? What's gonna change it? The only thing that I see that would change it at this point would be a civil war, or I don't see any peaceful solution to changing the United States and regaining control to a point where you can have an effective country anymore. They're effectively destroying the United States before our eyes, and there's nobody who's going to stop it at this point, because China wants it to happen. Russia probably wants it to happen, and the people who are inside our own government, you got to look at people like Omar, who are actively preaching about the destruction of the United States. You have Cortez and all these other people who would really like to destroy the United States. There's no doubt about it. And they call everybody racist. But if you're against the country that you're representing, you can't get much worse than that. So, like I say, what are you going to do about it? It's fight or flight. Either there's going to be a civil war, or you're going to have to choose to leave, like I did. And that's a decision that you're faced with at this time, because it's not going to get any better. I promise you, it's not going to get any better. And now is the time to make that choice. Fight or flight. What are you going to do? Because that's the only solution. If there's a group of people in the United States who want to reestablish control of the United States, the only way it's going to happen is with a civil war. I guarantee you. And if you're not going to engage in the civil war, your best choice is to get your stuff together and get out now. Because if you don't, it ain't going to get any better. I promise you, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. Well, if you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.